Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, June 13th, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live to tape steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Jeet Heer, National Affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine, host of the Nation magazine podcast, Time of Monsters. Also on the program today, Senator Alex Padilla, forcibly ejected and then cuffed in an attempt to ask a question at a press conference of Kristi Noem. Pete Hegseth on the Hill won't commit to obeying courts or to not invading Greenland.
Just got to worry about staying sober.
Exactly. One thing at a time. And more on the program today. Should say this is a special version of the Majority Report Casual Friday. A couple of things make it special. One, we are pre-taping this because our co-host, Emma Vigeland, co-host of the show, not our co-host. I mean, sort of. I just don't want to make it sound like I'm speaking in the royal we. Emma Vigeland's getting married this weekend, and so we're off to the wedding, and we figured pre-tape. And what we did not count on was that I was going to have Novocaine applied to me this afternoon at the dental office. I thought I was going in there for some type of recheck on something, and they started to do stuff, and I'm like, wait a second, is this going to wear off by the time my recording? And by that point, it was too late. So I just want to make it clear, at least in this very moment, I am not having a stroke.
It's dentistry related.
It is dentistry related. I imagine as the show progresses, I will be in better shape. But we are not live. We will not be taking phone calls or IMs today. There will be no fun half. It'll be a freebie Friday, and it will be a little bit truncated. Bear with us. We will be back to regularly scheduled programming on Monday. In the meantime, it is Thursday evening. Just hours ago, this bat crap crazy stuff went down. We had Hegseth on the Hill today attempting to testify. We also had testimony from 3 blue state governors. This is also coming in the wake of Donald Trump realizing, in some respects, that his immigration policies are beginning to really alienate the country. It turns out that when people decide between, hey, wait a second, you're not deporting criminal,
all the rapists.
Illegal. There's really not that many rapists, and I thought there was so many rapists,
sure, there's some good
murderers people and whatnot. And it turns out, no, just deporting moms and dads and workers and children. And we got to go to the elementary school to find the big, Tren de Agua or MS-13ers, I guess, hiding out, embedding themselves in first and second grade. When people start to realize that and weigh it against, oh, I saw a Mexican flag in California, it turns out they still have a basic sense of humanity. Not all. I mean, but enough of Donald Trump's voters so that he gets a little bit nervous. that is all the backdrop of this, and we will, show you the clip. I should say the Truth Social clip where he announces he's sort of supposedly not going to roll up rural undocumented immigrants.
He does one of these.
We're gonna see a lot more in blue states, if you ask me, and in cities. Nevertheless, Kristi Noem is out in L.A. Senator Alex Padilla is also apparently in L.A. Understandable, since there's a bit of a crisis there. The President of the United States has sent in military to do what nobody's quite sure. So Padilla goes to the Kristi Noem press conference, and as far as we know, attempts to ask her a question. And immediately, he is grabbed by, it's unclear who they are, the first guys who grab him because they have no identification, and throw him out of the room. Here it is.
Exaggerate and embellishing. Sir, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is,
pause it. Now, it's important at that moment to note what he has said that I think everybody can hear. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. Now, you would imagine the people from the White House would know what senators look like. I imagine, I don't know where this was. Do we know exactly where this was? But I suspect, based upon what I'm seeing in there, it's probably a federal building. Everybody's wearing badges like, with the lanyards. It's quite clear at that point that it's Senator Alex Padilla because he just said it's Senator Alex Padilla.
Yeah, federal building.
Federal building in L.A. And that's important because the comms person from DHS claimed we had no idea who he was. He didn't identify himself. So it feels like he's identifying himself by saying, I am
the senator.
And then
where you're at.
Then, finishing that sentence.
You'd also assume he didn't just walk in there off the street.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's a federal building.
Right.
You cannot, you can't just waltz into this press conference. And look at the dudes who are shoving, they don't seem to have. Maybe they're Secret Service, I guess.
One guy's got a lanyard on the right here.
I don't know who these guys are. Go ahead.
I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary because the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your.
I also want to
Hands off.
How many of our ICE agents have been docked?
On the ground. Hands behind your back. Hands behind your back.
If you let my hands go and stand behind my back.
All right. Cool. One hand. Lay flat. Lay flat.
Other hand, sir. Other hand.
There's no recording allowed out here.
I did not know.
There's no recording allowed out here per FBI regs for the building.
So what, I'm sorry?
There's no recording allowed out here.
That's my boss. I have to
There's no
record
recording
everything
allowed
for
out
it,
here. You can record. There's no recording allowed out here.
You can't record a senator
I'm
getting
not a member.
arrested.
There's no recording allowed. I understand that, sir, but
It's a press conference. There's no recording in the building. It's a press conference.
It says who?
Now, by the time folks hear the sound of my voice on Friday, there may be more video that comes out. It's unclear to me if Padilla was just shouting out in the middle of this press conference. It's quite possible. Seems like it could be a bit of a, political stunt in an era of political stunts and in a moment. It is interesting to me that that staffer was not recording him earlier. Now, I don't know if that means that we got an edited version of that as that's been released, or if he just started recording when he realized, like, wait a second, my boss is getting shoved around.
Not even going to be allowed to ask questions that Noem can just, disrespect.
Here is Padilla out in front. Apparently, he spoke to Kristi Noem afterwards. I can only imagine what that conversation was like.
If this is how this administration responds to a senator with a question, if this is how the Department of Homeland Security responds to a senator with a question, you can only imagine what they're doing to farm workers, to cooks, to day laborers out in the Los Angeles community and throughout California and throughout the country. We will hold this administration accountable.
He's right. And we don't really have to imagine too much. There are videos out there. People are seeing it. People are seeing it on their news. People are seeing it on their
TikTok.
They're seeing it on their TikTok and whatnot. I mean, and it is fundamentally changing the perspective that people have on this. It is shocking. I don't know if it's shocking that your average low information voter thought that Trump was only interested in getting rid of criminals.
Despite them, regularly waffling before what they meant by criminal.
It's just that the Trump administration's definition of criminal includes all, undocumented immigrants. And incidentally, you are not a criminal if you are an undocumented immigrant, any more than you are a criminal if you got a speeding ticket. It is exactly the same type of violation, at least that first time you come in. And then they're also doing this to documented immigrants. They're just revoking hundreds of thousands of people who are on one form or another of protected status. They are dismissing cases, and this story came out in NBC yesterday. Ronald Reagan had given us a heads up about this a couple of days ago. Immigration judges have been instructed to dismiss cases. And before there's an appeal, as they walk out the door of the courtroom, ICE scoops them up. So there are no legal proceedings that are actually happening because they haven't had an opportunity to actually formally put in an appeal. I mean, this is not, never mind not going after criminals. This is not even going after what they call illegal immigrants or undocumented immigrants. They're going after documented immigrants. They're going after immigrants who are here involved in a legal process. There is no other definition.
And honoring that process.
Exactly. And now it's to the point where they are throwing a senator to the ground for questioning. And at that very moment, I understand why Padilla is out in California, because this is his state, obviously, and there's a lot of stuff going down here. But Chuck Schumer, after enjoying probably a lunch of Vichy Soise, is on the floor of the Senate as a bunch of Democrats, I don't know how many, half a dozen, more, vote for cloture on the Genius Act, which is essentially going to make our financial system like the Wild West. And here's Chuck Schumer. This guy has to go.
Without objection. Mr. President, I just saw something that sickened my stomach. The manhandling of a United States senator. We need immediate answers to what the hell went on. I yield the floor.
And now let's go back to passing whatever it is we can do to help our friends across the aisle pass their legislation.
I guess Schumer voted against it, but he certainly didn't prevent his entire caucus.
Look, I'm it's not my job. I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable here.
What kind of bull is this?
I'm too busy trying to scuttle an Iran deal. All right, in a minute, we're going to talk to Jeet Heer about all this and more. First, a couple of words from our sponsors. Folks, you got summer coming up. We want to prepare. You want to have, a carefree summer. Maybe the kids are out. Maybe if you're lucky enough to have been able to send your kids away to camp, you're going to have a carefree summer. But to get the most out of life, you do have to be prepared. And a lot of us don't realize that a will doesn't cover everything when it comes to estate planning. Trust and will can help ensure that your loved ones are covered when it comes to things like medical decisions and power of attorney. Go to trustandwill.com/majority. Get 20% off their simple, secure, and expert-backed estate planning services. Also, if your kid has just turned 18, you got to do this for your kid too, because you don't have rights as a parent once they're, I think, after the age of 18. And you go to a lawyer and you pay a ton of cash, or you could just do it the super simple and easy way. Trust and Will is a super easy, super straightforward website to use. They just ask you a series of questions and provide you with the documents you need. And I'll tell you right now, it is to have all this stuff, particularly a will, have it all set and done. You're no longer sort of worried about, it's just one thing that has just been nagging in the back of your mind all the time. If you have a family, if you have kids, if you have loved ones, you got to get this done. All your information and documents are securely stored with bank-level encryption. Each will or trust is state-specific, legally valid, and customized to your needs. Estate planning can be super complicated. You may want to put stuff into a trust because then if you pass on, nothing goes through probate. It can be intimidating, I know. The Trust and Will makes it much, much easier. An overall rating of excellent, thousands of 5-star reviews on Trustpilot, used by hundreds of thousands of families and counting. We can't control everything, but Trust and Will can help you take control of protecting your family's future. Go to trustandwill.com/majority. Get 20% off. That's 20% off at trustandwill.com/majority. Also, it is that time of year, and it's getting hotter. How do you sleep cool? Well, I do it by sleeping on my Cozy Earth sheets. Yep. Cozy Earth bamboo sheets. They are temperature regulating. They are guaranteed to give you a comfortable night's sleep. They naturally wick away heat and moisture from your body, helping you sleep several degrees cooler. And I also have been sporting my new all-day tee, which is a t-shirt, naturally breathable fabric, keeps you cool and comfortable all day. And here's a dirty little Sam Seder streaker. Last week I wore it 2 days in a row. It's hard. When I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, why am I creating more laundry for myself? It's based on just my collared shirts for the show.
It's efficiency.
Exactly. They also have something called studio pants. They're incredibly soft. They're incredibly comfortable. They're breathable. They are a must-have staple. For me, my favorite Cozy Earth thing, though, is my hoodie. You've heard me talk about that many, many times. And I love their joggers. I never was a jogger person. Now I am. I want to thank Cozy Earth for sponsoring this episode. Thank them for my towels and my hoodie. Cozy Earth understands we need to create our home sanctuary. Your 5 to 9 routine should include relaxation and rejuvenation and cooling down. Cozy Earth bedding products have a 10-year warranty. That's a decade of cool quality sleep, 100-night sleep trial. Try them during the hottest nights of the year. If you're not in love, return them hassle-free. But trust me, you will not want to. Luxury shouldn't be out of reach. Go to CozyEarth.com. Use the code Majority Report for up to 40% off Cozy Earth best-selling temperature-regulating sheets, apparel, and more. Trust me, you'll feel the difference the very first night. That's CozyEarth.com. Code is Majority Report. Sleep cooler, lounge lighter, stay cozy. The link will be in the podcast and YouTube description. And also, Father's Day is this weekend. You still have time to send your father a gift. Or at the very least, take a snap of the gift that you got him. Instead of a pair of sneaks or a tie. Do people still give their fathers ties? I don't think anybody does anymore. Don't get
Never in my life.
Get something your dad is going to love, and may, in some instances, throw him back to yesteryear. That's some sticky, dank hemp flower from Sunset Lake, Seder. If your dad waxes poetic about the good old days of the wacky tobacco and how he followed the dead around. I don't know. Dad's that age? I'm an old dad, so.
My dad was the Eagles guy.
You can save 40% on all Sunset Lake's hemp flower products with the code DADGRASS. One word, DADGRASS. 40% off all Sunset Lake's hemp power products. They got, they'll ship them directly to your dad's door. And if your dad's a Trumper and you need a little help for yourself getting through a conversation with him, get yourself some hemp flower. Use the code DADGRASS, you get 40% off. There's smokables, there's pre-rolls, there's flour, there's keef. Check it out. Great on their own. I like to have a pre-roll occasionally after a nice dinner. Or you mix it in with your other stuff. It's great stuff. All third-party tested, all without pesticides. They use integrated pest management. It's a great company. You know about them. The sale ends June 15th at midnight. Don't wait. Gift your dad something he'll love. Head over to sunsetlakesabada.com. Use the code DADGRASS for 40% off all smokable hemp flower products. See their site for terms and conditions. You've always wanted to try it. Now's the time. 40% off. Do it. All right, quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Jeet Heer. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland is out today. I should also say I am just now slowly coming down off of Novocaine from dental work. And so if I am over enunciating, forgive me. want to welcome to the program Jeet Heer. He is the national affairs correspondent for The Nation magazine and host of Time of Monsters. It certainly is, Jeet. I mean,
it is. I chose that name of the podcast for a reason. And then what? I mean, Novocaine. Come on, man. Get with the times. The ruling elite of America, as we know from Musk, is like they're on ketamine, cocaine, ecstasy, shrooms. Acid.
Well, I'm not saying that I'm not on those. I'm just saying that they're not impacting my ability to speak.
Okay. But I mean, I just wrote something about this. I mean, it is a kind of interesting thing with Musk and others that, and if you want to include old-fashioned alcohol with Hegseth and others in the Trump circle. We have a ruling class that's stoned out of its mind and is acting like it.
Without a doubt. And all right, let's talk about, I mean, we are recording this Thursday evening. And so the big news right now is Senator Alex Padilla. We just played the footage before you came on. Senator Alex Padilla was thrown out of a press conference in a fairly aggressive manner. I mean,
Yes.
it was pretty aggressive. I mean, I mean, I think you say violent. I mean, it's tough based upon how much violence we've seen with the cops and on horses beating protesters and folks like that. But this was and then he was forced to get on his knees and then more or less like dropped to the floor while they're saying, put your hands behind your back. Now, one of the things about dropping to the floor is that your hands tend to want to go out and stop your face from hitting the floor. And he was cuffed. I know you're working on a piece. Tell us more about your perspective on this.
Sure. I mean, I think we kind of have to see this as, part of a pattern of Trump basically regarding both law enforcement and the military as his personal tools. That people talk about like no kings and Trump is ruling like a king. And I think that's almost like too generous because kings actually have some legitimacy and some rules. He's actually like trying to run the government like a warlord. And for a warlord, the military, the police, they all act as agents on his behalf. And certainly we've seen other cases of this. The mayor in Newark who was arrested, members of Congress who tried to get into the Treasury building, as is their right, as is actually, both a legal and constitutional duty to oversee the government and act as checks, and they were barred. So basically, when we're talking about Trump's authoritarianism, I think this is the kind of cutting edge of it, and I think it's something really worth paying attention to, particularly on the military end. I always thought that the pivot point of the first Trump presidency really came in the fall of 2020 with the George Floyd uprising and his desire to use the military to crack down on that. And they turned him down. They rejected that. And I think a lot of what Trump has been doing in the second term is to make sure that situation never happens again, that he has loyalists in who will do his bidding, that he sort of purged the military under the cover of opposing DEI, purge the military of officers, especially women and people of color. Obviously an even more vivid example is sending in the Marines to Los Angeles. So Trump, this is a new meaning to America first. We're not going to fight them over there because we're going to fight them over here. And so it is that, he sees the purpose of the armed agents of the state as to carry out his own personal policies. I'd also mention the sort of, I don't know how to describe it, the, scandalous speech at Fort Bragg, where they kind of vetted soldiers to make sure that they were Trump supporters and gave a speech to the military that was a partisan speech, attacking his enemies, attacking protesters as animals. One has to be cautious, because I think things can always get much worse, and you have to sort of keep your rhetoric in with the moment. But if there is a path towards American fascism, towards a real breakdown of democracy, it is the turning of the military into a private Praetorian Guard for the president. That's how it will happen.
I mean, this is the stuff I was thinking this afternoon after having seen that footage. I mean, I just remember in the first Trump administration, late in it, in 2020, I think it was, somewhere around there, saying something to the effect on MSNBC, I don't know if we're headed to fascism, but we definitely have to go through this stage to get there. And I think we are further down that road. This is not an isolated incident. And the speech at Fort Bragg, what must have happened, or what must I'm trying to sort of with a different administration, how would this have gone down differently? And you can apply this to the Fort Bragg thing, and you can apply it to what happened with Padilla. Because it seems to me that when the president comes to address Fort Bragg or whatever, military, the commanding officer, says you do not respond to anything that has to do with politics. Right? That is the standing order that they all have. And it really felt like watching that speech that they were not given that order. If anything, they were given the opposite order. And, even if it was implicit by the fact that they were vetted. And I just wonder, is there a scenario where if Marjorie Taylor Greene had gone, at a, to a press conference that Pete Buttigieg had, and she got up doing this, would she end up on the floor handcuffed? I got to think no.
Yeah, no. I think that definitely the rules of engagement have changed. There's, it seems like, parts of the military, and I think it's a different military. Trump has gotten rid of a lot of people that would have stood in his way and said no. And he also has a Secretary of Defense that is much more compliant than he had in his first term.
Oh, hey, let's play this clip. We have a clip of Hegseth today on the Hill being asked, will you follow a court's orders? And this is what he said.
Senator Baldwin asked you about the legal authority for the Marines in my state. I disagree with you. I thought not only do I not want Marines in Iran, I don't want them in California. But I don't want to get a gotcha. They said, what provision? Your administration since then has filed in the federal district court. You're arguing that the Marines should be allowed to defend federal property. I disagree with you. That's your argument. Here's where I hope we can agree. Whatever the federal district court decides, will you abide by it?
Well, this is a pending situation.
So will you agree, though, that it's not my legal view, it's not your legal view that makes the decision in America. It's the federal judiciary. If the federal court in California and the San Francisco, this district judge has orders a preliminary injunction, will you agree to abide by the federal courts?
What I will tell you is my job right now is to ensure the troops that we have in Los Angeles are capable of supporting law enforcement in there.
Sir, I agree with that, but will you?
And we know we have the constitutional and statutory authority.
That's fine, but can you just assure us that you'll abide by the decisions of the courts?
We've always looked at the decisions of the
courts. Well, the vice president has said that he doesn't believe that the courts should be respected in military matters.
This is not my lane, but we also recognize that the way in which the judiciary has expanded its powers.
But can you just give a simple? Okay, let me ask you this: two simple questions. You got 30 seconds. I'm not trying to trick you. I think it would assure the American people, because it shouldn't be Ro Khanna's view of the Constitution. It shouldn't be Secretary Hegseth's. It should be the Supreme Court and the federal courts. Can you assure assure the American people of two things. You will respect any Supreme Court decision on this matter about whether the Marines are constitutional, and you will respect the district courts when they rule before the Supreme Court rules.
What I can say is we should not have local judges determining foreign policy or national security policy for the country.
So you're not willing to say you would respect those decisions?
What I'm saying is local district judges shouldn't make foreign policy for the United States.
Okay. Now,
he means Los Angeles.
Yeah, exactly. People could not see the look on your face. I could see the look on your face as Hegseth was refusing to answer this question.
Yeah.
I mean, that's why Hegseth is there. It's not because he can, down a half a bottle of whiskey, at a sitting.
Yeah.
It's not just because he's so TV ready. It's that he is not going to, he is going to wait for Donald Trump. He is going to, and if Donald Trump says, I'm ignoring the courts, then he's going to ignore the courts.
Yeah, no. I mean, we're heading for so many different constitutional crises, but this is basically the core of it, that it is a view of the presidency that is sort of the imperial presidency on overdrive. And if one wanted to be sort of more historical and a little bit more fair-minded, I mean, I do actually think that responsibility for this, goes back many decades and to both parties, that there has been an expansion of presidential power, and Congress has not taken its responsibility. But, in Trump, we are actually seeing where this leads to, and also that the sort of so-called guardrails have all been dismantled, are no longer there in the same degree. And it gets to a situation where, it ultimately becomes a matter of force. It becomes a matter of troops on the ground, and the only thing that can stand in their way is going to be mass protesters. Is going to be this is the kind of situation where we're in right now, but even more rapidly heading towards, because once we get a situation where the Trump administration, if they do get unfavorable court rulings and they disregard them, what is actually going to stand in their way? Chuck Schumer? I mean, seriously, what is the actual?
I am very angry. As soon as we pass the Genius Act, I am going to speak to John Thune about this.
Yeah. But I mean, to give the sort of, not Schumer, but other Democrats credit, I mean, I think it's not only that Alex Padilla was mistreated, but that he was actually doing the right thing. He was doing the constitutional thing. It is actually, there are actually legal provisions where he is actually allowed to go where cabinet secretary is and ask questions that is perfectly acceptable, and in fact that is his constitutional
it's a job
duty.
I mean it's a
job.
big part of his job is oversight of these agencies.
That's right. I should add that they're lying about this. The Department of Homeland Security released a statement saying he didn't announce that he was a senator. And if you watch the video very clearly,
we watched the video. He literally says, I am Senator Alex Padilla.
So, So if it's a situation, I mean, basically, the viewers and listeners will know, Constitution 101, checks and balances. The courts and the Congress are supposed to act as checks. And in both cases, there's been some level of compromise, particularly with, some of the Trump judges, but also Trump saying, people in the administration saying they won't necessarily obey the courts. And on Congress, it's on both sides, I should say. The Republicans have really made themselves subservient to Trump, and that's a real problem. And they're not doing their job. But the fact that, you also have a sort of feckless Democratic leadership class that actually gets mad whenever any of their members of Congress and Senate actually do their job. And stand up. I mean, remember when who was the senator from Maryland who went down to El Salvador?
Van Hollen went down there, and there was other Democratic Congress people, and they were being chastised by Jeffries and by other Democratic leaders for going down there to attempt to secure Abrego Garcia's release. And I mean, he's at least, he's back in the country. They're bringing charges against him. I don't know the validity of those charges. They sound pretty fishy from my perspective, but nevertheless, at least there is, they were able to achieve some measure of due process. And this is the thing that is so enraging about the Democratic leadership position here, because I consider myself a fairly pragmatic person when it comes to these things. And, there are certainly some things where it's like, I'm sorry, this is just too out of bounds. You need to you need to make us think about this. But their failure to fight and push back when we're seeing that Trump is already like losing, support on immigration. And the reason why you lose support is not just because people sit there and make up their own mind. You need to walk people through this. And you said, there are some Democrats. Let's play this clip. Maxwell Frost, apparently within minutes of seeing this footage, took a, this is, Matt, what are we watching here with this Maxwell Frost?
Oh, this is just apparently them marching to Senator Thune's office. Maxwell Frost leading some representatives here. I don't think there's any senators here, but this is just posted to Blue Sky the 20 minutes ago.
So there's basically just some Congress people. I mean, but I don't see Hakeem Jeffries there.
No, absolutely. And I mean, on the politics of immigration, it is actually, there's some pretty good polling just right now showing it's kind of 50-50, except on the issue of the deportations, which a clear majority of Americans oppose. Now, if you're an actual opposition party that wants to regain power, then you actually, it's worthwhile to take an issue that you're weak on and to try to change it. And the deportations
that's Karl
Rove 101.
Exactly. Bush v. Kerry. I mean, they went right at the fact that he was a war hero when Bush was AWOL.
Yeah. And the deportations, the unpopularity of the deportations can be a wedge issue, which you can use to start a new conversation on immigration, and that I think you can win on. Because if you're actually talking about we're deporting children, they're deporting people who came over to America as children. We're deporting people who've worked here for 30, 40 years. And now you have the business class. Apparently, Trump is even obviously in retreat on this issue because he just posted on Truth Social, well, we're not going after the migrant laborers in the farms or in the hotels. So, I mean, obviously the business class started to phone Trump and said, what the hell are you doing? We need these people. So this is actually an issue you can win on. And if you can win on immigration, which is an issue where it's one of Trump's stronger issues, then you really have in a really good position. So I just think it speaks to, I don't know, this kind of servility, this surrender mentality that one sees in Jeffries and in Schumer. They do not know how to fight politically. But I want to be fair and say that's not true of Democrats as a whole. And the good thing is that more are becoming emboldened. And I actually think that the protests are actually emboldening Democrats in Senate and Congress to actually speak more on this issue. I think people are hearing from their constituents. I think aside from the leadership class, I think people in Congress and the Senate are having a better sense of where their base is and what needs to be done. And I would also say I'm being perfectly serious when I say I worry about a civil war scenario, right? When you have American troops, on the streets fighting with protesters. And I think that the manhandling of Padilla is kind of part of this. If you go through the history of the Civil War, one of the incidents that historians highlight is when the Senator Sumner was on the speech on the floor of the Senate, spoke against slavery, and then a Southern senator came up and started beating him. If you start having violence against elected officials, that's actually a pretty good indicator that you're going to start heading towards a situation where people feel like politics is not the solution. And if politics is not the solution, then violence is a solution. And I actually want to avoid that. I mean, I'm not an accelerationist. Like, I actually think that, like, let's leave the politics aside. Like, if Schumer and Jeffries were doing their duty as statesmen, as like political leaders, they should think about the fact that their surrender mentality is going to make civil war more likely, not less likely.
100%. You know, I've had some conversations with, or exchanged some. I've had some conversation with some folks on the ground in L.A. And the perspective of at least some of those people who are engaged in the direct action. And I got to be careful about what I say here, just because of agreements I've made. But the perspective there is not we're protesting or something like this. It is we are protecting members of our community. We are in one part of that is inhibiting and tying up the police, and the other is just like trying to, by a whole host of means, protect people in the community and thwart what ICE is doing. And part of the reason why people end up doing that is because the politicians who presumably represent these communities are not doing it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely the case. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, push the Civil War analogy further. I mean, that's what the abolitionists found themselves having to do. Once you have the Fugitive Slave Act, like if if the political system has failed, then you're going to be put in a position where, like, you're going to have to, like, go outside the law in order to protect people, and that is what we're seeing. The more the Democrats fail to address this issue, the more they fail to protect people. And these are people who are totally woven into American society, right? So it is. And I'll add another aspect of what Trump is doing here, because he's setting. It's like he controls the federal army, the federal government, and he's setting it against the states that are his enemy. Like, it's not an accident he's going after California. They're having these hearings on the so-called sanctuary states.
Exactly.
He's using the power of the government against states that he sees as on the other side. And that is also like a civil war situation. He's not presiding as the president of all America. He's not being the commander in chief with an army that's supposed to protect all America. The army is his personal mercenary force, and he's going to use it against the states that he sees as his political enemy. And the FBI is going to go, manhandle senators. This is we're in a tinderbox here, things could very easily explode in very dangerous directions.
Well, I think your point about it's interesting, because you look at those the governors who were brought in on the blue states, and by all accounts, ICE is ramping up in those states, in those big blue cities, and in many respects, these governors are much more sensitive to where the Democratic base is than the Senate leadership. I mean, I've never been one to be sort of Washington this, Washington that. But there are some of these Democratic leaders who really need to get out more.
Yeah.
And they are, their views are completely ossified.
Yeah, listen, they are getting out there. They're promoting books.
Well, that's true.
They're going to APAC meetings.
Yes, Chuck Schumer has been on book tour. To be fair.
But yeah, no. I mean, the Senate is traditionally the most insulated.
Hakeem Jeffries now has, maybe the passage of the Genius Act to go and brag to all those Silicon Valley people that we're on their side.
That's right. Yeah. No, I mean, this is it's a two-front war, right? We got to try to stop Trump from doing what he's doing, but there's also this kind of war within the Democratic Party. And like until there's like a leadership change, and when it's seeing a situation where like whether you like it or not, David Hogg is kind of out there for trying to shake things up.
Yep.
And you have like Democratic representatives who are like in their late 80s and who are clearly suffering from like some level of dementia, who are like going to run again. I just think like unless we address that problem, unless this party it becomes more democratic in the small d sense, like 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 you have to solve both problems at the same time.
Yeah, and I don't even. It's possible one. There's a sequence too that's going on. Like it's that sense that there's nobody sort of driving the bus. Does not give people confidence, and it definitely bleeds down, I think, into things. I mean, this.
Oh yeah. I mean, like it's an astonishing number. I think like it's something. It's in the 70s, 73, 74% of Democrats feel that their party's ineffective. Like I mean, those are your own supporters, right? Like I think like unless that's a wake up call, I don't know what is.
Do you think it's because they haven't rolled back enough of the regulations that protect low-income people or the environment? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know. Speaking on that point, this is a bit of a digression, but I think it's very interesting that because like I'm a sort of pragmatist, and like I'm actually a pragmatist on the immigration issue. Like I do actually think. Like in terms of like either border control or concerns about effects on wages, we have to take this stuff seriously. But I know for a fact that like Ezra Klein went after Bernie Sanders for like having a moderate position on immigration and saying like basically making a case for open borders. And Matt Iglesias wrote a book called 1 Billion Americans, which you get 1 billion Americans by having like far more open immigration than the U.S. has now. And these same people are now aligned with the very forces in the Democratic Party that want to like cave in to Trump on immigration. So what this says about their sincerity, political consistency, or even like ability to think logically, I don't know.
Well, I have a sense of what it says, but speaking of which. There was a brief moment where I think Ro Khanna was one of the people. I mean, some things that Ro Khanna does that I like, but there's a lot of things. He represents
Silicon Valley.
Yes, reaching out, but the idea that there was even an idea that Democrats should go to Elon Musk, like.
Well, yeah.
Do you not see there's a problem if we need to run to a disaffected billionaire at a moment's notice? That's the answer for things? Do we not see that as just a problem in general? Forget.
Well, no, but I mean, I think this speaks to like a broader divide within the Democratic Party, because I do think the abundance people, they do have a kind of theory of politics, and their theory of politics is that the Democrats made a mistake in alienating the billionaires, that they had like too much regulation of competition, and so people like Elon Musk and Ben Horowitz went over to
Cuban,
yeah, and so that if we have bring back the billionaires and have good billionaires, that would help the Democrats. And conversely, you have like the Bernie Sanders position, which is that even despite Citizens United, we don't actually need the billionaires. We're actually better off without the billionaires. There's really no good billionaires. If we just do small donor donation, that makes us would make the Democrats much less beholden to like unpopular economic policy. So it's two like very distinct visions. And I do think that, on the abundance stuff, like I don't know about zoning laws. It makes sense that you should reform some of them. But I mean, the core of the politics is that these guys are very heavily aligned with like the idea of good billionaires and like trying to like make a billionaire friendly politics that wins the richest Americans back to the Democratic Party. And I have to say, like, if that's the case, I think the downside of that is you're not going to be able to do any sort of economic populism. You're going to make people much more disenchanted. You're going to have, like, the big problem for the Democrats in the last presidential election was like a lower turnout, like just about 8 million people just didn't show up. Who had shown up before. And if you want to discourage voters, if you want to then welcoming back into the Democratic Party the guy that gave a Hitler salute and is trying to end Medicaid.
His heart went out to people.
That's a pretty good strategy, huh?
His heart went out to people, Jeet. He sent his heart out. But I mean, I think
also a misunderstanding of the billionaires. It's a misunderstanding of Musk. I mean, Musk's argument is not like he suddenly sees the light and sees Trump as bad. Like, he's actually mad that Trump isn't doing enough to gut the government and to,
exactly.
Yeah, so and Trump and Musk himself is a very sincere, radical right winger. You can clearly see. I think going back to one of his children transitioning, that this guy's radicalized, and he's this is Mr. White Genocide. So I why would you even want someone like that in your party?
Yeah, and I think the straw man from the abundance folks, to the extent that I have seen it, has been that they're the people who have a problem with billionaires as a policy question, or oligarchy, see it as the only sort of they're one trick ponies. But the bottom line is that I think is that they are the billionaires are being in a coalition with billionaires, and the existence of billionaires is one of the biggest veto points there could be. I mean, that's their whole sort of concept is there are too many veto points in building, too many veto points. But the fact of the matter is that
we saw this in the last election. I mean,
exactly.
Kamala Harris literally ran her program through Wall Street, and they said, "Oh no, don't talk about price gouging as much as you are. You got to tone that down." So, giving veto power to people that are so fundamentally opposed to any sort of economic populism. I mean, it seems folly. I mean, we all remember the classic Chuck Schumer quote that for every blue collar worker you lose in Eastern Pennsylvania or Ohio, you'll get 2 more in the suburbs of Pennsylvania.
Yep.
Now we've got to the point where you're saying for every blue collar worker you lose, you're going to get 2 billionaires. Well, I don't think the math works out.
Right.
I just think that there's a lot more blue collar workers in America than there are billionaires.
Are you paying attention to what's going on in the New York mayoral race? Because it's has the potential to really, I think, fundamentally alter that conversation.
It absolutely does, and I'm kind of grateful that the centrists have decided to coalesce around, this sex fest who actually had to resign his last political job because of his actions. And the polling looks good. We'll see what happens. I think that the big issue to me is enthusiasm. He's clearly built an army of supporters that are going out there and are fanning out. We're probably going to get ugly. It's already kind of ugly with the ad where it gave him the sort of Ayatollah Khomeini beard. I think we're going to see a lot of that. There'll be a lot of pictures of Zoran looking like Saddam Hussein or Bin Laden in the coming weeks. That's my prediction.
Yeah, I think that's true. But I will say early voting starts on Monday.
Yeah.
Thursday, is it Monday? Or does it even start before then? I think the 14th is my recollection. Is it the 14th? So that's 13th. It's Saturday. It starts Saturday. And so people in New York City can go out and vote on Saturday. And he seems to be peaking at exactly the time that you would want him to peak.
Yeah, no. I think that's right. I think it's probably also worth mentioning it's ranked balloting. So, fill out your ballot with everyone that's
you need to fill out all 5.
Yeah,
all five, and none of them should include Cuomo.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes. I mean, Cuomo, has a history of dirty politics. I'm not even sure if I'm like allowed to say this. People will think this is outlandish and offensive, but like in the late '70s, when Mario Cuomo was running for mayor against Ed Koch, there was like a very famous poster that was like plastered.
Oh yes, and Andrew was the one who came up with it, is my understanding of the reporting.
Am I allowed to say the slogan?
Well, yeah. I mean,
okay. So
this is what the slogan was that Andrew Cuomo promoted, and who wants to say it?
Okay, I'll say it. So it was like, vote for Cuomo, not the homo.
Right.
Based on long-standing rumors about Ed Koch's personal life. I think if that's what they did, in the '70s, we're just gonna see what they're gonna do.
Yeah, if that's what Cuomo would do for his dad, then here it is. I mean, here's the flyer. If that's what Andrew Cuomo would do for his dad, what's he gonna do for his real? I mean, if Cuomo loses this, he's going to run in the general election, and he may do. I think he would do better in the general election than maybe the Democratic primary. So, I mean, who knows? But this is existential for him in terms of his political career. If he loses for mayor, he's done. He's just going to go on and be a sex pest in private enterprise.
But
he'll go get a job with Ken Langone or something, or some right-wing billionaire.
That's right. Yeah. All I have to say is he's been pretty low energy too. I kind of feel like we'll see. We'll see how this plays out. But yeah, I do think that part of the gambit will then be that he'll run in the general. But I do think that would probably absorb a lot of the Republican vote. It's going to be a real. I mean, it's going to be a real marathon from here on in. It's
going to be interesting because I think his strategy was to lay low and just let his name do the work.
Mm-hmm.
And because I think the more that he gets out there, the more it starts generating people telling stories about the shutting down the hospitals prior to COVID. And then putting COVID patients into nursing homes, and the IDC, how he basically thwarted any real Democratic legislation as governor, and is shutting down of the what was the commission? I can't remember the name of the commission off the top of my head now, but that was looking into to corruption. And when they started to investigate his office, he shut it down.
And actually, I mean, in the last days of the campaign, I do actually think there is a kind of, the sort of low information voter, or who's just going by name value, but also Andrew Cuomo has a reputation as a tough guy. So there's a kind, you hear this from people, they're saying oh, he's the guy who can stand up to Trump. And I think that what's maybe worth emphasizing, to try to reach those people is this guy's getting a lot of money from Republican donors. Andrew Cuomo is, and he has a history of kind of caving to the Republicans as well. So I think that maybe the point to emphasize for Democratic primary voters is no, this guy's not going to stand up to Trump. He's actually so compromised as well that like Eric Adams, you're going to get a second New York mayor who can't stand up to Trump.
It was the Moreland Commission, and Cuomo shut it down when they started to investigate his office. And I think you're right. I mean, the guy is completely compromised in a myriad of ways.
And I actually honestly think in terms of reforming the Democratic Party, New York State is one of the places it has to kind of happen. There is a kind of old political machine there. I think that aside from having a very exciting mayor who'll do a lot of good things, I think anything that can put a stake through the heart of the New York Party Democratic political machine and get it so that that state can have a real political party, that would be very good. I mean, I think the two states that need reform are California and New York. So in terms of the Democratic Party.
Couldn't agree more.
And Florida. I'd
and Florida. I was just going to say, in Florida, it would need a makeover. Jeet Heer, we will put links to your pieces at the Nation magazine and as well as Time of Monsters. And, you know, I guess maybe the last thing I wanted to ask you is, like, at what point do you think we pass because there's a quality of, like, you know, boiling frog to all of this, right? I mean, it's a bit here, a bit there. A lot of people don't want to get out in front of this thing because then you're the person who's screaming about, like, you're being hysterical about fascism and whatnot. Although that seems to be quickly, disintegrating.
I think, like, among Democratic voters, I think that's no longer even an issue. Like, I think, and actually increasingly among independents. I mean, like, I just think, to me, like, as I said, the real stumbling block is the party leadership. And, you know, like, we saw this from Schumer. Like, he's kind of like waiting. He's waiting for the Republicans to break rank, you know, which is not going to happen. So, you know, like, it's going to continue to be a crisis. I think, like, honestly, and this is, like, what the thought that terrifies me. Like, I think the breaking point could be if you have, like, American troops kill American citizens. I think that, you know, and that's a real possibility. Like, you know, like,
Marines are not trained to do crowd control. Marines are trained to kill. Period. End of story. I will say this.
Unfortunately, I think this is also part of Trump and especially Miller's strategy, that I actually think that they actually are looking for an excuse for, like, to escalate.
100%.
And so, you know, I don't know. Did you watch Andor?
I watched the first season. I'm waiting on the second season because I'm trying to get my son to watch it.
The second season,
Don't spoil
like a protest that's, like, highly relevant. And then, you know, like, obviously the screenplay is taken from many cases in history, but it is often the case that, you know, this rising public anger combined with, like, sort of autocratic rulers that, like, want to, you know, like, an excuse for a crackdown, like, that combination can, like, you know, quickly escalate in a very dangerous ways. And
I think the thing to watch is this birthright citizen case because in the Supreme Court, because the ruling there is going to be less about birthright citizenship and more about the capacity of a subsidiary, like a federal court, an appellate court, to issue a nationwide injunction as to whether or not the administration will follow those. Like, Hegseth would not say that he would follow that. And, you know, when it comes to the Marines, that is going to be a big, big deal, I think. But we shall see. Jeet Heer, always a pleasure.
No. Great talking as well.
Thanks. All right, folks. Are we going to take a break or we're not going to take a break? I don't think we are, actually. I think we're just going to continue on. And we'll get a couple of clips that I want to go through. This tweet. Truth bomb by Donald Trump. What do they call them?
Why do you hate the truth, Sam?
I'm just trying to remember what the name of it is.
It's a truth.
A truther?
It's a truth.
A truth. All right. I'm sorry. A truth by Donald Trump. It was from Thursday afternoon. Our great farmers and people in the hotel and leisure business. It's just, and our great service workers,
the game show hosts,
have been stating that our very aggressive policy on immigration is taking very good longtime workers away from them, with those jobs being almost impossible to replace. In many cases, criminals allowed into our country by the very stupid Biden open borders policy are applying for those jobs. This is not good. We must protect our farmers, but get the criminals out of the USA. Changes are coming. So I think what he's saying there is we're going to ease off in certain sectors. I wonder if it's also somebody said, you know that your Department of Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, there's talk that maybe on her farm there might be some undocumented. But it's also, I think, this is indicative of of why Trump is at least ostensibly pretending like they're going to back off. They think that if they show images of what's going on in New York and California, that it's just going to feed, it's just red meat to their base. And for the most part, it is. But it's going to turn off. It's going to turn off, I think, people in swing states, A. And B, I think you're also going to see an increased turnout in these states, particularly places like, Atlanta and in Philadelphia and maybe Pittsburgh and Madison and Milwaukee. But here is a guy, Vincent Scardina, who is a Trump supporter, being interviewed. And where is this?
The great state of Florida.
No, Channel 6.
In the
yes.
leisurely town of Key West.
Here we go, in Key West.
You've lived in Key West for how long?
44 years.
Vincent Scardina is the owner of the roofing company where they worked. He's owned it 37 years.
It's going to be really hard to replace those guys.
Says losing these 6 men is losing a third of his workers.
We're not able in Key West to just replace people as easily as, say, a big city. Very limited people to pull from. And then you would have to train them. And that takes sometimes years.
But for Vincent, it's much more than that.
It's financially as well as emotionally. It takes a toll. You get to know these guys. You become their friends, just not an employer, but a friend. And you see what happens to their family. It's quite a shock.
Given his support for the president, we asked what he would tell the commander-in-chief if he had a chance.
What happened here? This situation is just blatantly not at all what they said it was.
Vincent, you voted for Donald Trump?
Yes, I did.
While he agrees with most of the president's policies, he thought the Trump administration was going to focus solely on deporting criminals. It seems immigration officials, he says, are just trying to meet quotas now.
Buyer's remorse? I don't know. A little bit.
How much damage does this create in your community?
It's not just happening to me. I mean, it's happening across the board. I know of one landscaper that lost 9 or 10 of the whole crew he had, and he's just totally out of business all of a sudden.
He wants his workers released and yearns for normalcy in his community and for the families of the men many argue were wrongfully detained.
Honestly, like I hear this stuff and it just, I guess maybe he wasn't paying enough attention beforehand to the rhetoric. Okay. But even now, he seems like he's still supporting Trump. And I just don't know.
Buyer's remorse.
Yes, some buyer's remorse. Like, what exactly is on the other side of that ledger?
There's a group in Florida called Latinas for Trump, and I covered them in 2015 when I worked at Fusion Network. I remember they're Cuban, right-wing Cuban and Venezuelan people.
Well, that's because they've now kicked out all the Cubans and the Venezuelans under the temporary protected statuses.
They've had a change of heart.
Yes.
But according to them, they said it was seeing these people being apprehended on the way to the court hearings.
But here's a guy, and I understand that. I mean, I understand the reaction of we thought it was going to be one thing, it's not another. I mean, not everybody's job is to sit here and read the news and be this aware. And we know that Trump won this election basically on the backs of low information voters. But here's a guy now who is got firsthand experience, who is almost breaking up into tears, talking about families that he sees destroyed. And what is on the other side of this ledger?
Get some tax cuts.
It could be the tax cuts, although he hasn't seen them yet. But he assumes they're coming. I mean, what's on the other side of this ledger?
Yeah.
What is more of a payoff to him? I mean, my guess is I don't know. I don't know.
Then what's going to make up for half a dozen of your worker/friends being sent to some concentration camp?
It's also amazing to me that there's always this sort of like fundamental, almost essential quality of not being able to be empathetic unless it's like literally happening to you. Or
he's almost crying for himself.
Exactly. But I'm fascinated as to like what's on the other side of that ledger. I don't know if we'll ever know. I mean, I have some guesses, but it could be something idiosyncratic. He really, really didn't like the antitrust proposals of the Biden administration, or maybe he's really concerned about Gaza. Or
he hates Medicare.
It could be he just thinks that like we're spending too much money on the Medicaid. I don't know. Fascinating. Very disturbing. Meanwhile, this was yesterday? So this is on Wednesday. We are pre-recording this show, just a reminder to you. I don't know why we say this. Like 90% of people who will consume this show do as like a podcast, or it's
VOD
released like we're just doing it 8 hours earlier, but whatever. Scott Bessent, the Secretary of the Treasury, was in front of which committee is this? The Finance Committee. And they are attempting, I mean, as they sell this
Ways and Means Committee.
in the Ways and Means Committee, as they sell this budget, this reconciliation bill to the American public, they are just person after person is being sent out to basically tell lies about it. The lies of 1.4 million undocumented immigrants on Medicaid. No, that's not true. Medicaid is statutorily banned undocumented immigrants. There are, in 14 states around the country, public programs to provide health care for immigrants, because at the end of the day, it's cheaper on the public coffers. And I would also imagine some people actually think that, like, well, they're here, they're working. Maybe, those 7 guys who are working on that roofers company, maybe they should get health care. What happens if they're sick? It's going to hurt your business, buddy.
Maybe they should just, be part of the community officially. I don't know.
But that's 14. They lie about that. They lie about the idea that there are 4 million strapping young men who just decide, I don't want to work. I don't want to make any money, but I'm super, super concerned about my health. And so I still want to be able to go in for my annual physical. They lie about that. And now they're lying about just the basic math of their bill, which is that it increases the deficit astronomically. And Scott Bessent rolls out an oldie but goodie. Here he is being asked, what number is this? Representative Mike Thompson from California asked him this question in the hearing.
Mr. Secretary, can you point to one independent study, one study performed by an expert PhD economist who is not on the payroll of this administration that says that this legislation will not add to our national debt?
Well, Congressman, if...
Yes or no? Can you point to one?
If we want to look at the CBO...
No, I'm asking you, is there an independent expert that you can point to that says that this bill will not add to our national debt? Yes or no?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
What are they?
Art Laffer.
Pardon me?
Art Laffer.
Art Laffer? Great. That, I don't think that one counts.
Now, you see everybody laughing. Even Besant himself, go back to just when he says Art Laffer. Even Besant himself almost cracks up in saying this because Art Laffer is so discredited in both parties at this point. Just watch Besant's face when he says it.
Is there an independent expert that you can point to that says that this bill will not add to our national debt? Yes or no?
Yes.
There is?
Yes.
What are they?
Art Laffer.
Pardon me?
Art Laffer.
Look at his face. He can't say it the second time without cracking a smile. Scott Besant never, ever cited Art Laffer before this moment. This is the first time in his life. Who is Art Laffer? If you've listened to this program for any amount of time, it's almost offensive to me that you don't know who he is. But Art Laffer was one of the architects of supply side economics, which as far back as 1980, George Herbert Walker Bush called voodoo economics. Here's Austin Goolsbee in terms of what he talks about, what is about the Laffer curve. The Laffer curve is a theory that if you go up, no, don't put that up yet. If you go up on an axis, that the further you increase taxes, the less people want to work. And that if you raise taxes, that there's a point where people stop working. Now, I'm sure anecdotally, there are instances where there are somehow multi-hundred millionaires who would say I think I'm going to retire early because I'm only making 90 cents. I'm only making 10 cents on the dollar for every dollar I earn over, $5 million. But the Laffer curve has one other element. It says that if you cut taxes, you will necessarily get more revenue. Why? Because by cutting taxes in any amount, it's going to create more economic activity. You're going to get more growth, and you will get more taxes paid in volume.
In abundance.
You get more taxes paid in volume because, rich people will be paying less of a percentage of their income, but they're going to be making so much more money that they're going to end up paying more in taxes. Here's how Austin Goolsbee, and I'm not a huge fan of his, frankly, but here's how he says, they looked at, they asked people if they...
Yeah, this is a sort of a poll of a whole bunch of economists, Goolsbee just being one of them. So here's their sort of pithy responses to what the Laffer curve is.
Moon landing was real. Evolution exists. Tax cuts lose revenue. The research has shown this 1,000 times enough already. So the point being, here's another guy, David Autor. Not aware of any evidence in recent history where tax cuts actually raise revenue. Sorry, Laffer. Chicago Booth may look plausible on a cocktail napkin or a cocktail party, but not true empirically in the U.S. That was the Laffer curve, was famously drawn on a cocktail napkin. Keep going. Chicago Booth, Richard Thaler. That's a Laffer. But we also have a very explicit real-world example, and it is called the state of Kansas. And in 2012, Sam Brownback became governor of Kansas, and he brought in Arthur Laffer to be his top advisor. And they went on a whole project of cutting taxes. Matt, I want you to Google the Kansas Art Laffer experiment and show me what the headlines are. Because after cutting taxes, the Republican-controlled Senate and Assembly in Kansas realized that it was a disaster. And now everybody's now caught on to this. But maybe you can go back, just go back like 5 years so that you see this.
As Trump proposes tax cuts, Kansas deals with aftermath.
Yes, this is all people now writing about the actual. I want to see contemporaneous headlines, because what happened in Kansas with this experiment, you got to go back, do like a time set. So just do like 2015. What happened after 2 years was that they were so decimated. Revenue was so decimated in Kansas, and they had to cut deeply into the Kansas higher education system there, destroying what was one of like the crown jewel of Kansas. They had to cut on education so deeply that a completely Republican-controlled House and Assembly raised taxes. And Sam Brownback was so utterly disgraced and so utterly hated. The great Kansas Tea Party disaster, that's back in 2014. It was so thoroughly debunked and destroyed that they actually appointed in the Trump administration Sam Brownback to be ambassador to faith. So they could actually be jettisoned up into the ether. And we would never hear from him again. And the idea that they are basing this on Art Laffer and the Laffer curve, they want what is known as dynamic scoring. They have some theory that if you cut taxes, it's going to raise revenue. Because people are going to work more and try and make more money, because now that they're making 70% or 80% of their money instead of like 35, instead of like 65 or 75%, they're going to make so much more money.
You know, out of touch you have to be to think it's the tax rate and not like your rent and expenses. That
Well, but they're talking about rich people.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
They're talking about rich people.
Who can relate to that?
And the thing is that empirically it's been shown over and over and over and over and over again that this is not true. That Art Laffer is wrong. That when you cut taxes, you don't necessarily raise revenues. It's just not true. And particularly when you top load these taxes, which like these are. Because as they say, a rich man buys one loaf of bread at a time. They're just using that money to basically to buy stocks. Which, of course, these wealthy people, what they do with their stocks now, they buy the stocks or they get them as compensation from their companies. Their stock increases in value. It is not taxed until they sell it. They don't sell it. And then they borrow against it. And they keep taking loans against it. And the loan costs them 3%. Because they get a favorable deal. Meanwhile, their stock portfolio is going up by 5% or 8% or 9% or 10%. They don't get taxed on their loans. And that's how they just live.
But do you think because like rich people find these ways to like not pay taxes, that these people are like had seen, oh, like when the tax rate's higher, it's the rich people are making less money, or something? Like they can't. That's the uber wealthy. I mean, there's still. I mean, obviously, if rich people are paying less in taxes, they're paying less in taxes. They're not taking all. Exactly. All their compensation is not all from stocks. They're still getting some cash. But it's like a dummy just like saw tax returns and was like, oh look, they're making less money. Like, no, they're not making less money. When the tax rate's higher, they're just going to greater length to cheat.
No, Laffer is this is just a theory that he came up with. There's no empirical basis for any of this.
It's motivated reasoning is what it is.
Totally. So Basant, embarrasses himself, but he doesn't care. I mean, this is going to be about basically mowing through the parliamentarian. They can't get the CBO to do their dynamic scoring, and so now they're going to have to just basically pretend that it doesn't increase the deficit, doesn't increase the debt. It's all just going to be a lie. Okay, lastly, tomorrow, Saturday, the 14th, there's a couple of things happening. 250 years ago, tomorrow, the 14th, the Continental Army was established as a way of fighting back against the British. The military had decided about as late as like a year ago that they were going to have a small commemorative celebration. Donald Trump became president. His birthday, I think, is the 14th. Is it the same day? And has decided that he's going to celebrate. He's going to finally have his big parade. He wanted to do this in the last term. And basically, he was convinced by Esper and others that the tanks are going to tear up Washington streets. Well, you've seen the footage of all the tanks that coming from Texas to Washington, D.C. And Donald Trump is intending to have a massive military parade tomorrow on Saturday to celebrate his birthday. This is clip number 6. Donald Trump announced this a couple of days ago and made it clear he doesn't want any protests there because it's his birthday. And there are protests planned for that day. You can go to nokings.org. But here, let's first play this clip. Do we have it?
Any message to adversaries as the Army kicks off 250-year birthday celebration?
I just think it's amazing. We're going to have a fantastic June 14th parade, Flag Day. It's going to be an amazing day. We have tanks, we have planes, we have all sorts of things. And I think it's going to be great. We're going to celebrate our country for a change. Recently, as you know, with World War II, the victory of World War II, I called up France and they were celebrating the victory. Well, we helped them a lot, as you know. I don't have to get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory.
To be clear,
we're the only...
There's a good reason why you might celebrate a victory when you're in France, because they were occupied. They were literally occupied. They were, in Britain, they were bombed repeatedly. Europe, the entire population lived the war.
Whole cities just destroyed.
So the implications of it may be a little bit different. And of course, this is celebrating the Continental Army from 250 years ago. I don't know why he's bringing up World War II.
The British are coming.
They get big parades. Good.
Get into that. But I called up other countries. They were all celebrating the victory. We're the only country that didn't celebrate the victory. And we're the one that won the war. Okay, if it wasn't for us, that war, you would be speaking German right now, okay? We won the war.
Or Russian.
And you might be speaking Japanese, too. I mean, you might be speaking a combination of both. We won the war, and we're the only country that didn't celebrate it. And we're going to be celebrating big on Saturday. We're going to have a lot of, and if there's any protest that wants to come out, they will be met with very big force. By the way, for those people that want to protest, they're going to be met with very big force. And I haven't even heard about a protest, but, this is people that hate our country, but they will be met with very heavy force.
I haven't even heard about this nokings.org protest that's happening all around the country. I haven't even heard about it.
I'm worried about some I never even heard about before.
I mean, it's just his birthday thing, and he doesn't want it ruined. Go out and protest, meet people, develop networks. And embarrass Donald Trump. Meanwhile, somebody at a press conference with what's her face, Caroline Leavitt, asks a question like, "Hey, is this a little problematic? Like, why are you already planning to meet with big force protesters? Like, people protest. People protest. People protested at like the Bush inauguration parade. That's what was one of the. In fact, one of the big deals about the Continental Army was they were fighting ultimately for a constitution in this country, which allows freedom of speech
against despotism
and says there's no king. Here's how that question was answered.
And then on the domestic side, you were just asked about the First Amendment rights issues. In the president's comments yesterday, though, he just said protesters would be strongly dealt with. In your list before, you referred to insurrectionists, rioters, and protesters together. Obviously, they're quite different from your earlier answer. I'm struck by the fact that the president has not at any point said the most important thing here is to protect the First Amendment rights of peaceful protesters. So I'm wondering, where in his hierarchy of interests does he place that? Is the First Amendment protection the most important? Is stopping violence most important? Why is he not out saying all peaceful protesters will be protected?
I think two things can be important at the same time. And the president, as I just answered, supports the right of Americans to peacefully protest. He supports the First Amendment. But that is not the majority of the behavior that we have seen taking place in Los Angeles. We have seen mobs of violent rioters and agitators assaulting law enforcement officers, assaulting our federal immigration authorities. And we have seen, as I said, this goes back to what this administration is trying to do and accomplish, and that's enforcing law and order in our nation's communities. And it's removing public safety threats from communities in Los Angeles.
You're saying the majority have not been peaceful, the majority have been violent.
I just read for you the arrest numbers. We've arrested nearly 400 illegal aliens alone, just illegal aliens who have been arrested in these riots since June 6th, since they began.
Thousands of people on the streets.
Yeah, and we've had hundreds of people who have assaulted law enforcement officers. Are you saying that that's not
I pause it here. First off, I seriously doubt there was 400 undocumented immigrants arrested in these protests. But here's the clip that I thought we were going to play here too. This is how Leavitt responded to a reporter following up on that initially. It's interesting. I noticed like the way that she responds to one question versus the other.
The president warned that any protests on Saturday would be met with force. Can you clarify what kind of protest President Trump does support or find acceptable?
The president absolutely supports peaceful protests. He supports the First Amendment. He supports the right of Americans to make their voices heard. He does not support violence of any kind. He does not support assaulting law enforcement officers who are simply trying to do their job. It's very clear for the president what he supports and what he does not. Unfortunately for Democrats, that line has not been made clear, and they've allowed this unrest and this violence to continue, and the president has had to step in.
So if there were peaceful protests on Saturday for the military parade, President Trump would allow that?
Of course the president supports peaceful protests. What a stupid question.
Maybe it was a function of him saying if there's protests. I mean, this is all part of a whole. This is all part of a whole, folks.
It's lying for a reason. It's not just lying because the truth is something they don't care about. They're grasping power.
And I'll tell you, here's the thing, is that if going back to that guy who's the roofer in Key West, if he didn't know, if, Latinas for Trump didn't know that Donald Trump was actually going to deport and break up families and make it impossible for people to even follow the rules, When she goes out there and says, of course, you know, it is an example of how them lying actually helps
cement the coalition.
Cement their coalition.
Yeah.
Because remember, like that's a perfect example of how their lies have worked in the past. Had they come out and said, we're going to deport everybody and anybody, not just criminals, and had they come out and said that more explicitly and made that the only thing they said, you may not have people who are surprised at what Trump is doing. So, like, she can be there and lie, and we know, like, wait a second, he's already said something. It's not a stupid question. But it helps cement their constituency. So, I don't know. We're getting into, red alert territory if we weren't already there. It is, well, let me put it this way. We've been there for immigrants in this country. We've been there for trans people and other marginalized people. And now it's just like sort of seeping out. Pay attention. Tell people to pay attention. All right. That's it for us today. We're going to Emma's wedding. Matt, Russ, Emma, in absentia. Have a good weekend, folks. A reminder, there is no, well, I guess maybe this could be cut up as a fun half. I don't know. We'll see. But regardless, no calls, no IMs today. We pre-recorded this on Thursday. See you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want.